The music of Béla Bartók is known throughout the world as some of the finest concert music of the 20th century, but he's probably more well known among musicians and composers than he is among non-musicians and the general public. But the non-musician and the non-concert going public is very familiar with one Bartók piece in particular because of its use in the 1980 film The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. The same piece of music that was in that film several times is used in a bunch of other films and TV shows, and it's been used over and over throughout the years. I'm speaking, of course, about Bartók's amazing piece, Music for Strings, Percussion and Celesta, written in 1936, and it's one of his absolute masterpieces. And I'm going to show you some examples of where it was used in film and television. The first usage that I know of in television was the theme music for The Vampira Show in 1954. Vampira was played by model and actress Mila Nurmi, and each week she would introduce a classic horror movie of the week on ABC in Los Angeles. The show only ran in Southern California, specifically in the LA area. And she was obviously the inspiration for Elvira.
Did you rip that off?
Now, the show only ran for about a year, but it was very popular in the LA area. Here's a clip from the opening of the show, and the theme is Bartók's Music for Strings, Percussion and Celesta. It's creepy, it's kitsch, it's fun, it's super Halloween, and yes, that is the same Vampira who was in Plan 9 from Outer Space, directed by Ed Wood. And apparently she was the model for Maleficent in the original Sleeping Beauty. Now let's fast forward to 1967, an episode of Doctor Who called Enemy of the World. That music is the Allegro movement from Bartók's Strings, Percussion and Celesta. Music for Strings, Percussion and Celesta. I know, I'm just going to call it SPC. It's too many darn syllables. So, that's from the Allegro from Bartók's SPC. I doubt when Bartók wrote this music that he was thinking about a scene where people are getting chased on the beach by a car/boat full of gunmen with really poor marksmanship. But it does work pretty well against picture. And a year later, in 1968, another episode of Doctor Who called Web of Fear.
Mr. Silverstein?
Yes, who are you?
Anne Travers. Is my father here?
Yes, he's here. Come and see him and take him away. He's a fool, an old fool.
Father? Father.
Anne. What are you doing here?
Looking for you.
Huh?
You were supposed to be meeting me.
Was I?
At the airport.
Hmm.
Father, what is the matter? You sent me a cable saying you're in grave trouble, and I have flown half the way around
Trouble?
the world.
Yes. Great deal of trouble. It's that thing.
The Yeti?
You're a stupid old fool, Julius Silverstein.
First of all, I think that's just Sweetums from The Muppet Show. And, there's nothing to be afraid of with Sweetums. I mean, he's harmless. It's right there in his name. Secondly, that's exactly the same music that was used for the Vampira theme. And it just works so well to create a creepy backdrop to any scene. And here's the same piece again, a different movement, in the opening titles of an Australian film called Money Movers from 1978. This time it's the second movement from Bartók's SPC, the Allegro. And apparently Bartók's music can even be used to arouse suspicion when people are moving stuff from here to there. Which brings us to 1980 and Stanley Kubrick's film The Shining, probably the most famous usage of this piece of music in film. Now here's the famous scene where Danny is riding his tricycle around the hotel. Stopping at the door. Room 237, the famous room. Don't go in there, Danny. Don't go in there, Danny. Now listen closely to the music, even though I'm talking over it. Sorry about that. If you listen closely, it's so slow and hypnotic, and he's moving like he's hypnotized. It's rising. He looks at the number, the door handle, the number, the door handle. Tries to get in, nothing. And the music just kind of freezes there. Ugh. Gosh, I forgot about the twin. Yikes. Okay. It's still creepy. After all these years, it's still creepy. So it seems like that music was written for that scene, but it wasn't. Obviously, we know it's Bartók, right? And the music and sound editor for the film, Gordon Stainforth, chose a lot of the music for the film and cut this scene to that music. That's why it's like so tight against the music. That's why it seems like it was written for the scene, but it wasn't. Now this section of the piece, this exact same section, is used in a couple other places in the film too. Like here, when Danny and his mom Wendy are going through the maze out in the yard of the hotel. Let's look at that.
I'm gonna get you. You better run fast. Look out. I'm coming in close. All right.
Just have to keep American please.
Oh, no.
Keep American please.
Okay. Danny, you win. Let's take the rest of this walking. Huh?
Okay.
Whew. Give me a hand. Oh, isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
And here's that exact same section again, used later in the film when Danny and Jack, played by the amazing and iconic, I know I use the word iconic too much, but the iconic Jack Nicholson in one of his most famous roles, and they're just talking about staying at the hotel. And watch what the music does to this scene.
I can't. I got too much to do.
Dad? Do you like this hotel?
Yeah. I do. I love it. Don't you?
I guess so.
Now, Kubrick initially didn't want music in this scene, apparently, but Stainforth talked him into it, and I think the scene is better for it. Now, here's some trivia, and it gets kind of interesting. Stanley Kubrick moved to Los Angeles in 1954 when he was 27 years old, the same year that Vampira premiered on local TV in LA. Now, there's a rumor, just a rumor, that Kubrick briefly dated someone by the name of Mila Nurmi, aka Vampira. And if that's true, that means he was probably really familiar with the show, and he watched it, and it happened to feature Bartók's music. The exact same excerpt he used later in his most iconic film, 25 years later. Now, I can't confirm that the rumor is true. I'm not saying it is true. I've combed Mila Nurmi's biography. Yes, I actually did that. I watched a documentary on her life. She's actually a fascinating person. And I read about Kubrick using Bartók in The Shining, and there's no mention of their relationship. So it's equally possible that it's true and not true. Probably more like it's not true. But, so as far as I know, it's just a rumor. But if it's true, there are some really interesting trivia implications about the use of Bartók's music in both of those projects. The nerd world may never know. This music really highlights the genius of Bartók's composition, harmony, and orchestration. So it's no wonder this section is so well appreciated by generations of listeners, composers, music supervisors like Gordon Stainforth, and even famous directors like Stanley Kubrick. Now, there's a couple more examples of where this piece is used. Let's fast forward to 1999 for the film Being John Malkovich, a trippy movie from Spike Jonze that features Bartók in a marionette scene. Here's that. Again, this is the Allegro movement from Bartók's SPC, and it has a few edits to fit the scene, but apparently it works for puppets too. And finally, we go to 2022's The Eternal Daughter, directed by Joanna Hogg. This is another ghostly story that takes place in a solitary hotel, just like The Shining, and it also uses music for strings, percussion, and celeste. But this time it uses the opening movement with that twisting fugue in muted strings in the very opening of the piece. This is arguably some of Bartók's finest writing, and the fugue alone in the beginning deserves a deep, deep study. I couldn't find a clip from this film to show you, but if you're a Bartók fan like me, or you just like good movies, I recommend that you go watch The Eternal Daughter. So to recap, this piece of music is used to accompany scenes of vampires, yetis, thieves, carboat thugs, marionettes, ghosts, and alienated writers descending into madness. None of which Bartók ever knew about because he died in 1945 before any of this stuff showed on TV or in theaters. But if he ever came back as a ghost, I think we know what he'd use as his entrance music.
Yeah. Who this? This beat. Yo, who this? Yo, who this? Who this?